afternoon, I guess, we're supposed to get some snow.
Freezing rain, basically, is what I call it.
Oh, well, last night he was saying that we could get up to 8 inches.
What?
Uh-huh.
Oh, then they've changed their forecast.
Well, no, maybe they changed it back to freezing drizzle, but that's what last night on the weather, he said, it'll start this afternoon and that it could go through tomorrow morning. And that's what Down Under said, up to 8 inches. I don't know.
Bring it on.
They don't know.
I'm here for this, and I'm going home, that's it till Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, that's probably the best plan.
That's when
That's probably the best plan.
have to be at VA, I volunteer at the VA on Tuesday.
Oh, you do?
In the afternoons, that's when I'll get out again.
Then you'll get out, so, yeah, but even freezing drizzle can
Oh,
be treacherous.
that's worse.
It is, because you can't see it, so. This morning I noticed it, when at, people's driveways and stuff, there was a lot of ice, because there had been water, I guess, standing, so. Anyway, so everybody needs to be very careful, and, so, today in worship, we're going to continue our discussion of hospitality. Today is, we're going to talk about prejudice and how we often don't accept people that we think we don't like, or that we think they're not like me, so they must not be okay, and how we exclude them, and that we're called to not exclude anybody on the basis of gender, race, all of those things. And so anyway, so that's what we're going to talk about today. And one of the things that I was thinking as I was writing, working on the sermon, was that this is a congregation that understands that and understands how painful that can be. But it doesn't mean that just because we experience it, that we don't do it to somebody else, right? I mean, I've experienced it for other things, and it doesn't mean that I still am not judgmental about certain people, or, they certainly can't be okay if they do X, Y, or Z. And I laugh when I watch college basketball because, there was a day that when you saw a basketball player, if they had a tattoo, you'd go, because people just didn't have tattoos. The people that have been in World War II and got them in some country when they were drunk, and they said mother or something, and those are the people that had tattoos. And now, if you watch a college basketball game, you are not likely to see a player without a tattoo. And some of them are, they have a sleeve here and a sleeve here. I mean, they're everywhere. So that's just an example of how we can have preconceived notions about somebody just over something silly like a tattoo, that they must be kind of wild and crazy, or, kind of sketchy person. So what are some other things and ways that we judge people that you can think of, or maybe that you've experienced or you've done to people? We make assumptions. So what do we base our assumptions on? Somebody new walks in, what are things that I might, or you might?
The way they're dressed.
The way they're dressed,
The way they
exactly.
look.
The way they look.
How much money do they have?
How much, you question how much money, they may look like. I've heard people say they just looked like money,
Yeah.
And how much money. What else?
A friend of mine, she had her first child at 14. She has very bad dental. I brought her to this game with these women and everything. And one took me aside and said, we're really trying to keep, I don't want a meth person in my house. I said, she hasn't used meth. It's because of inability to afford dental.
Well, right.
Because her teeth are really bad, but she assumed she was a meth user, and she didn't want her in the house.
See, that's a perfect example. And also their profession. Because if they are ex-profession, you may think, oh, well, rich or they're whatever. And I know a woman who is a pilot for American Airlines. And she's been a pilot for them. She was probably one of the very first female pilots. And what do people always assume? No, that when she says works for American Airlines,
She's just doing
Flight
it.
attendant.
she's flight attendant. So you're a flight attendant. And she says, no, I'm a pilot. And then it's like, oh, you know, but we assume based on gender
Yeah.
and, you know, that she couldn't be a pilot, right? And, what was it?
I used to get I worked for American Airlines, and I was a gate agent, and I used to all the time, oh, you're a pilot. Why would you assume I'm a pilot?
Uh-huh, yeah.
Just because I'm male?
Yeah.
Understand that, good.
Yeah.
Well, my dad was in the Air Force, and so people always say, oh, he was a pilot. And I said, no, he wasn't a pilot. Because, of course, the Air Force, they fly planes, right? So they must be a pilot. But there are a lot of other jobs.
Flight mechanic, everything else.
Yeah, all kinds of things. And so, anyway, we make assumptions. How has someone misjudged you, you feel?
My friendliness.
Huh?
My friendliness.
By friendly, that's one way we just exclude by don't talk to them,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right, Mike.
Are they too friendly or?
Are they too friendly? Yeah. Exactly, exactly.
I have a cousin that, when he was the oldest in our family, like, of cousins, and he had a bunch of tattoos, and like, when I was little, he had a beard,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just scared of him. And he'd been married 8 times. I was just completely scared of him, wouldn't go near him.
Yeah,
You know, but now, we're best friends. I mean, he's like the kindest, gentlest,
Yeah.
nicest guy.
yeah,
Appearance.
yeah.
And he was a mechanic too, so his hands were always
Dirty, and,
Yeah.
yeah, fingernails dirty, yeah.
My dad was a sheet metal worker, and his hands, they were stained with the oil and stuff,
Uh-huh.
sheet metal, and people didn't want to shake his hand because they thought they weren't dirty, they were perfect clean.
Yeah.
You know, took a shower every morning, every night before she went to bed, so
Yeah,
it's just assumptions that you make on appearance.
appearance is a big thing. Julia?
I had been sexually abused for years.
Uh-huh.
I went to Catholic school. For me, men who are, I don't know, there's just a type that gives me the creeps, that I have a difficult time being
Uh-huh.
around, because my spidey sense says, you know, stay away. Do not. I can't really describe why or who, but my brain just tells me to stay, you know, they're not good for you.
But that is not based on just an opinion. That's based on something that happened to you, that causes you, right? That causes you to feel that way. So, and now, as long as you recognize that, and then you don't just automatically exclude somebody, because all people may not be like that.
Yeah.
But that's actually an experience you've had, not just, well, I was always told that, you know, to be leery of, you know. And I think the
From
LGBT,
a distance,
you immediately,
well, from a distance, I get an idea of how they interact with other people.
Uh-huh.
It all depends, I mean, if I'm at an event and there's someone there, I'll observe from a distance.
Uh-huh.
And see how they behave, and, you know,
Yeah.
it's not totally not totally shut away, but I'm very cautious.
it brings up that feeling when you meet somebody of a certain, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Diane?
I had a friend at work, we were best friends. And I even went over and stayed at her house one day for one night because we had to get up real early in the morning to get somewhere. And I played with her kids and all kinds of stuff. And then she found out I was gay.
Ah,
And she never talked to me. She wouldn't do anything I say hi, she say hi. And you know, she just completely shut me off. She was no longer my friend,
Just because of that?
just because she found out I was gay.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people stereotype people.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Mhm.
they assume that all gay people are child molesters.
Oh, I know. That
Evil
just kills me.
people that, you know,
Yeah.
stay away from,
Yeah.
and they're not. I'm sorry.
Well, I
hate
don't
to
think
tell them.
any, the LBG, I don't think any of those letters stand for child molester, do they? I don't think so, but somehow people get that idea in their mind. Well, the other thing we do sometimes is we project onto other people the things that we don't like about ourselves, or, you know, we don't like about ourselves. For instance, how many times have you heard somebody who just rants and raves about, often this is a man, rants and raves about gay people, how terrible they are.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
down the road somewhere, lo and behold, it comes out that that person's really gay.
Yeah.
Republican.
Couldn't have preferred.
Now, we're not gonna be
Reverend.
partisan today, Julia, because,
Okay, I'm sorry.
no, well, and here I'm gonna tell you why, I'm gonna say this in the sermon, because this isn't a Republican or Democratic issue.
Yeah.
The Democrats can exclude just like the, you know, I mean, all of us do this. And so I don't want people to think it's a political sermon because I'm preaching to the Republicans, because all of us can exclude. I feel
I know,
that.
it's just like-
It's just slowly
wanted to
sinking
fix
in. Slowly sinking into the west. So we all do it. I mean, maybe you don't, but if you don't, I want you to tell me about it, because you will be an exception, because we do it, it's kind of insidious. We don't sometimes realize we're even doing it. But I have heard more situations, like I was saying, or maybe somebody doesn't like somebody who has done X, whatever it is, and then it comes out that maybe they struggled with that very same thing. And so they're projecting onto other people what they can't accept in themselves. And so sometimes that's the case. Not always, but sometimes. Julia?
There was a senator, I don't know who was against gays.
Mm-hmm.
He quit when he found out that his son was gay.
Yeah,
So when it happens to you and it's within your circle.
that's right.
Then you understand that, well, that's my son, there's nothing wrong with him.
Right. That often is the case, yes, that people realize that somebody, it doesn't mean you're a bad person, you know, because they know somebody, and then it changes
And
everything.
He switched, he
Yeah.
is helping now.
Yeah. Now, sometimes, which is very sad, they reject their own kids, you know, I mean, they reject the person they're close to. Not always, but sometimes, and it's very sad, and it's a very sad thing. So, okay, anybody else, a way that you have felt that people judged you and made a decision about who you were?
At the bagel shop, they were like, "Where's the real owner?"
Oh, really?
Where is he?
Where is he?
He.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
That's fun. Gosh. Well, of course, I've gotten that, you know, where's the pastor? This family came in to talk to me the other day about a funeral, and I'd never met him. And one of the relatives that was with him came up to me and said, "Oh, so are you the secretary here?" And, of course, the person from the church was just appalled, you know, that
You
he
should
would
have
say
said
that.
sometimes.
Sometimes, it just depends on the day. And, but, you know, I mean, it was an older gentleman, and I can kind of give him a little grace about that. And I said, "No, I'm the pastor." And he said, "Oh, okay."
See,
I mean,
you're
he
in
didn't.
a
Yeah.
position where people don't assume that women are
Right.
pastors. They're
Right.
always men that are up on.
That's
preaching
exactly
to you.
right. That's exactly right. And so the very first time I preached at Broadway, there was this guy, I think I've probably told you the story, who was a young guy who had been injured in a motorcycle accident. And I think he was drinking and driving his motorcycle, and he was in a wheelchair and profoundly disabled. And but he came to church. His caretaker would bring him to church, and so we always talked to him. I can't remember his name now, but we'd go up and talk to him. He's always really nice, and I'd, go speak to him, and the, senior pastor would speak to him. And so the day I preached, when I got done, I walked out like we do, saying the benediction, and then I stood at the back. And he was the first person out. And I put out my hand, and he said, "I don't believe in women preachers." And I thought, what a way to start. First person out of the door. And, it doesn't feel very good, does
I
it?
can just say, oh, I'm sorry, you're really missing a good sermon.
Well, he had heard the sermon.
Yeah.
But the thing was, you're so taken aback, it was like, I didn't know I was like, oh. And then people were coming out, and so it was like, but I was just shocked because he had always been very nice to me and talked to me and everything. And then all of a sudden, just like Diane's friend, when he heard I was a preacher, it was like, whoa, no. And so.
Well, at least he stayed and listened to the whole sermon. He could have.
Yeah.
He could have left at the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he could have, but his caretaker, I think, didn't take him
Oh, my
out.
gosh.
But anyway, somebody else, you've had an experience where you felt excluded because of something about yourself.
Well,
Well,
family.
yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
What?
I was gonna say, you were from Broadway Baptist Church, that's not known to be a gay church, although there's a lot of gay members. I know
That's
that
right.
personally, because I know them.
Yeah,
But he would just assume since you were there, you weren't associated with anybody gay.
yeah, could be.
Because you were a minister and you were at this big church.
Could be,
So,
yeah, yeah. Julia?
There's Semitism and stuff going on.
Mhm.
Well, I've got problems in my own family. I'm married to a Jewish man,
Mhm.
and my husband told me I'd go to hell for marrying a Jew.
Your husband told you that?
Oh, no, my husband, I'm sorry, my brother.
Oh, I started
I haven't
saying.
talked to him for about 10 years. and
Uh-huh.
He won't have anything to do with me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, there used to also be a lot of prejudice against Catholics. If you were a Protestant, there was a lot of prejudice. I mean, for some people, there was a lot of prejudice against Catholics. And oh my, they're gonna make them raise the child if they have a child if you marry somebody, you're gonna make them raise your child in that church and da-da-da-da. So, yeah, a lot of preconceived notions about people, and they're hurtful. It's a hurtful thing, and it's not a pain that it's not a pain that's easy to just dismiss and just say, oh, well. Like I said, if it's somebody over 70, I can kind of give them a little grace because I think they grew up not having women preachers, how would they know? And so I can be a little more gracious to them. It's much harder when it's a younger person, that should know better and should know that there are women ministers, so.
I think it's something that you acquire as you grow up, as what you, because I worked in a hospital all my life.
Uh-huh.
I never thought of a doctor being a woman.
Right.
Especially a surgeon.
Right.
And we had some good side surgeons up there, Methodists, that I had ever met in my entire life. I trust my eyes to know about but them.
Yeah,
And it's just something that you make on their
that's right.
personality or their.
That's right. That's right. And it is the same about a nurse. You think it's going to be a woman, right?
Until that
And
man
there are a
comes
lot
along.
of male nurses these days, and,
You can have a man and a woman stand there, they both work in the hospital,
uh-huh,
in the surgery field. He's a nurse and she's a doctor.
right,
Yeah.
right, yeah. I have a friend and his niece is a doctor and she's married to a nurse, a guy who's a nurse. And it seemed, and so this brings us to another thing about racial prejudice, and that is, we're all now familiar with the term white privilege. And many times, we don't even realize that we have that kind of prejudice because of white privilege. And so it's kind of like those things that we grew up thinking this, and so we just assume this. And it, like I said, we don't even know that we have it. And white privilege is so deeply ingrained that we don't even get it sometimes. You know, well, why would that offend somebody? I didn't mean to offend them. But it's because of all the things that have happened to, in this country, particularly black people, that have created this kind of divide, and it's deep, and it's wide, and it's really hard to.
White is black.
Yeah.
There's no other
Yeah.
color in between. It's
That's
just-
right, that's right. And, you know, I was talking to my grandchildren, we were having this conversation. So, because one of them said, oh, well, he's part white, so he's white. And I said, oh, no. If you're part half and half, you're never called white.
Yeah.
You're black. Look at Barack Obama. His mom was white, his dad was black. Have you ever heard him referred to as white? Never, never.
Or mulatto.
Yeah, but never, you know, I mean, they assume he's black. And I don't care how light you are, you know, that's ingrained in us, in our society, that we make an assumption and call them black.
Yeah.
And so that's a very good example of kind of the whiteness that is pervasive in our country still, which is unbelievable, still. And we just aren't even, sometimes we're clueless about it. Any other thing you can think of like that, about?
Well, it's not like that, but it's getting to be where it's getting more obvious or right out in the open now.
Uh-huh,
The prejudice.
you're right.
Used to be kind of sneaky,
Yeah.
but now it's not so much, right?
Yeah, I said that when I wrote that letter about the Ku Klux Klan being over at Torchy's, and I was saying, and somebody in church called me to task about it, but I said, we've always known there were Nazis out in the woods somewhere, neo-Nazis. I've heard that term years ago, neo-Nazi. I had to go look, what is a neo-Nazi? And I went and looked it up. Well, they were out there, but they didn't come to town. And now they feel perfectly fine coming to town. It's okay. And so the person, and they weren't being mean about it, but just saying, well, having, as a person in the LGBTQ community, that seems kind of exclusionistic to say that they shouldn't, as if they shouldn't come to town. But just because you're LGBTQ doesn't mean you want to kill people and you only believe in white supremacy and all those things. To me, that's a little different, that what your intent is. And so anyway, okay, something else about white privilege. I would encourage you to do some reading. One of the best books I read during that whole period with when George Floyd was murdered, and the books that came out, and it was by Isabel Wilkerson, and it's called Caste. And it is an excellent book. And what I thought was so good about it is she would take things that I knew were prejudicial. Okay, I know this. And then she would explain the depth of it, and you'd go, oh my gosh, I never even realized that. And it just was kind of opening my mind that I thought it was this deep, and it's this deep. And that one I would recommend. It's very readable. She's a good writer. She wrote a book a number of years ago called The Warmth of Other Suns, and she followed 3 black men from a small town in, I think, Mississippi, and where their lives took them. And one ended up in like Detroit or somewhere, one ended up in California, and one ended up staying there. And the one that went to California was a doctor. And what was very interesting was he was in Los Angeles, and he was a doctor, he was well-respected in the community, but when he joined the country club, which country club did he join? No, the black one. There was a black one. And he wasn't, so even there where you know, we have this idea, oh, everybody's, you know, it's all okay. Even there were these divisions, and he and his family joined the black country club. So he was in the upper echelon of society, but it was still black society.
It was still considered a lower
Yeah,
class
exactly,
person.
exactly, exactly. And she talks about that poor people, the one thing, poor white people often would say, well, at least I'm not black.
It's what?
At least I'm not black. I'm
That-
poor
yeah, that puts you
to
a
show
lower
you that, and she contends that we really have a caste system in our country still. Just like India, you know, we always go, oh, how awful they do that, but that we do the same thing in a little bit different way. And so it's everywhere. And all right, I think it's time for me to depart. I'm sorry I was late, but I do thank you for coming. I got a text from somebody in the church, and they said, well, there'll be a lot of empty seats today, and I thought,
Might be.
there might be, but we'll
you might
have,
touch that one soul.
we'll enjoy it, won't we?
We will.
So I thought, you know, there might be, but there might not be. We'll see.
I got
So-
I think I told you that my brother-in-law had written American Tragedy.
Oh.
It's about Jim Crow.
Uh-huh.
Europe.
Uh-huh.
I got a copy for you.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I'd like to read it. I'd like to read it. Yeah, it is important that we read those things so we understand more about our assumptions about white privilege. That we don't think that we feel that way, but when we read about the kinds of things that we do,
He
It
lived
is.
it. And
Yeah.
he got on the buses, on the black buses, and interviewed people, and he went deep into, as deep as he could, as a white person.
yeah. Well, you know, there was a person from Fort Worth who, years ago, way back, and I can't remember if it was a woman or man, but did something to make their skin look black like me. Do you remember, have you heard of that book?
Watermelon Man.
And they went in and lived in the black community. And so the book is all about their experience of being black. And those have been around a while, but they're still very interesting books. So let's say a prayer before we go. Whoops. God, we thank you for this day, even in the cold, and with the wind blowing, we feel the warmth of your love. We thank you for these friends who've come to think about the ways that we can extend your love and grace to other people, that we can offer extravagant hospitality to all who enter our doors. We give you thanks, oh God. Amen. All right, I'll see you across the way.
Oh, we have to stay for that too?
You
We
just
could
want to
stay
go to
here and wait for
lunch?
lunch.
Well, you could.